Ooh, okay. I know we talked about getting some Reddit, Reddit stuff here,
You did,
and
yes.
I did find three good ones.
Good as in good, or like the bad kind of good for this?
No, good, good. Okay. I'll be honest. I've on YouTube and everywhere else. I have been seeing a lot of discontent towards D&D. A lot of people complaining. A lot of that stuff. So I was like, well, don't get me wrong, I'm not a shining light of positivity on this world, but at least for D&D, my favorite game, I'd like it if people were less pissy about it, for sure. Uh, so yeah, that's basically where I'm at. Let's see. Okay, let me get some music playing in the background real quick, and we should be good to go. Let me move this, close this, get a music here. There we go. Let's get some D&D lo-fi. Oh, how about some steampunk theme music? There we go. A little bit less loud. Alright, are we good to go?
Yes, yes, I'm ready at least.
Heck yeah. So, a couple topics we're going to run through, but before that, welcome travelers to the Worldbuilders Lantern, where ideas spark, worlds ignite, and every tale lights away. I'm Alfix, and my co-host, Kitsune Noble, we're going to be building one story at a time, so gather close as the lantern is lit.
Nice
Uh,
intro.
thank you. Okay. Speaking of building worlds, we were talking after our last D&D session, and as I was playing with my friend in that Warhammer campaign, this kind of hit me hard as well. How do you design cultures? Like food, the clothing, the general actions of the civilian people, you know?
Yes, so I don't like I usually mix it based around something cool. Like I don't really like build like society first. I sort of set like the cool thing in my world first. That I think is cool. I would want players to experience, or maybe not. Maybe it's just for me. Uh, but once I have that down, I sort of build the culture around that, so that things make sense for the world to be like that, for this to be in the world. A good one is been playing a lot of Monster Hunter as of late. Slowed down a bit,
Ooh.
but uh, obviously when you build a world around that, everything revolves around the monsters being hunted. So there's like societies that are, um, you know, made to hunt monsters, which is like the usual. But then there's a lot of, rather than like mage college or stuff like that, there's more natural sciences being studied for that particular science, that particular society. Um, there's a lot of craftsmen who make use of the parts, and because of that, they usually have very high trade, because they're usually hunting monsters in very specific lands that other nearby societies, cities, cultures, nations don't have access to, and thus are willing to trade lots of money for those materials and or already made products for them. Um, and then it just sort of goes from there. I always, of course, Monster Hunting, you always have to have like a chef's guild then, because to make use of all the meats you are getting, but that's sort of how I create the cultures and like the systems within a society. It goes like from top down based on whatever cool thing I really like that I'm purposely placing as the top. So you think about the cool thing and then work your way down for it to make sense where this cool thing is able to be a center focus of whatever nation, city, society you are trying to build. And that's how I do it.
Interesting.
A lot of
Interesting,
holes that
'cause-
sort of come into play because I don't think of the specific stuff that makes things run. But that's where you use good old what I think of good old adaptability. You just have to come up with it on the spot, and you just try to keep it simple if you don't know it already. Then maybe it gets elaborated on further down the line.
'cause for me, I think I do the opposite, honestly. Like, I try to build when I'm world building, right? I build the cities, and the first thing I do is build the country's cultures. Is it a country based on like more military activity, more arcane activity, more divine activity? What are their more political beliefs? Are they friendly towards other countries? Are they indifferent? What is the habitat of that country? Do they have forests, deserts, etc.? And I think from that point, then I start building the people's dress wear, their general cultural activities, stuff like that. So it's not, for me, it's not one cool thing. It's like, oh, it's the culture first and then the cool stuff. How can I add the cool stuff to fit the culture? Which honestly has hurt me more than it has helped. So, like, for example, I'm gonna be talking about Karael here, but one of the biggest issues I've had with Karael is that I decided to limit and mostly banish the gods and like their existence and their authority in this world, and how much they can intervene in it, which has it's removed some of the kind of cool stuff that make D&D gods cool, but it's also given me, I think, a bit more of a freedom in terms that I don't have to worry about the gods being cool. They just have to be mysterious. Where I think in normal D&D they have to be cool and mysterious for the most part. Where they're still gods, they should still be mysterious, but like when you meet them, they should also be like really cool. So I've had it kind of bite me in terms of like, hey, warlocks are really rare. People love playing warlocks. Hey, there's prejudice, even though a little bit, towards paladins. People love paladins. Clerics are basically seen as cults, right? Cult members, big cult members, which is not good. And like, people love clerics. Well, people love most of the D&D classes. So when you limit people in terms of what they can play, how they can play it, what they're allowed to play, without feeling the prejudice and like the real world reactions that people already get and are kind of tired of and don't want to deal with and don't want to have the headaches of, into a D&D campaign, I feel like that really starts to be like kind of tiring, kind of there's definitely room for backlash, which, as I said, it has come to bite me back in the butt a little bit, especially like when writing stories, right? because I think I can talk about this here. In our campaign, one of our players died, and in normal D&D campaigns, bringing back a dead player is more expensive than anything else, right? It's doable.
It's
It's definitely
doable. It's the thing
yeah.
about that. Like, there's spells, there's things to do that.
Yep. It's more feasible. In my world, it has to be like this whole big arc. And, you know, the death was just unlucky rolls and a little bit of bad planning and some lucky rolls on my part. And it really stings where little, like, there wasn't any big major mistakes there, I don't think, except for like one thing we already talked about. But like the little mistakes costing a lot and derailing the story, and honestly making the player feel sad it's a bit more frustrating to deal with, right? In Karael than it is anywhere else. Like if this was Faerun, people would just go, "Oh well, let's go to a church," you know? Let's pay a decent amount of money. We're like level 2, level 3 adventurers, level 5, level 6. We can scrounge up some money
If you're in a big city
to.
like Baldur's Gate or Waterdeep, somebody there's gotta know Revivify or
Yep.
any of the other esque spells.
Or even like higher level spells, resurrection, true resurrection. If you have like a really big cleric or like a really big anything really, it can be like really easy in a big city to find that. While you guys are like in Durnhold, one of the biggest cities in Gorza, yet like there's no guarantee that anything within Durnhold is even gonna be able to bring back your dead comrade, and you guys are probably going to have to travel, though I don't know. I'm still in the middle of writing everything, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like when it comes to cultural world building, it's difficult, and like when certain cultures kind of go hand in hand with the world building, you can kind of trap yourself into a lot a lot basically.
Yeah. I will say, comments on what you were talking about, your world and how you built it. I think you built it fine, in terms of alienating some player choice. Because that's just like how it works as part of the world you want to make. And so long as the players are aware beforehand, I think it's fine. You know, obviously, if they really just want to play a cleric, they picked the wrong campaign to join, basically. And then there's just a quick comment on the people who like say they will do it, but be it secretly, but just try to work around in some way, which is we don't talk about that. That's just not a good way to do it. But I will say yours is fine. All that needs to be is like a the story you're telling through your game does have something to do with the fact that like divine magic basically is non-existent or taboo.
Looked down upon.
Yeah. Because if it's like not really a part of the story, then it feels like, well, why couldn't I have played a cleric then, kind of thing. It feels like just like...
Well, here's the thing. I believe I told you as well. It's not that you can't play a cleric. You need very specific backgrounds and upbringings for your character to be able to play a cleric.
Well, yeah,
right?
yeah. What I'm talking about is like, if the taboo of divine magic is like not super important to the story you're telling, it feels like the people who wanted to play those classes are being very limited for not exactly a good reason, because it doesn't play an important role in the story.
100%.
So just be
Also,
careful
hi
with
Joy,
that.
hi Manina. Well, the thing is, right? Because I was gonna talk to you about this, and where better to talk about it than the D&D podcast where we talk about world building. Um, so in the Arc Guild, the Durnhold branch, there is specifically one cleric. But they face their issues. They face their issues as a character. They face their issues within the city. Within the city, they try to like act more like a fighter than they do a cleric. Limit their spell use. Don't walk around with their entire what's its name? Their entire holy symbol and everything. And like they do have a troubled past and a lot of stuff happens, but I don't know what's a good way of just kind of like letting the players know, hey, this NPC, while yes they are a cleric and yes clerics are considered taboo, they've gone through a lot of shit because they're clerics.
I mean, the only way to answer that would be introduce it when it would make sense in the story. If a player is looking for a cleric for whatever reason, or if we need one for whatever reason, they might step up. Or maybe like some big event happens and they are forced to maybe reveal a little bit while we are present. I guess that would be the way to do it. You don't want to like just have them show up and do it, because what you want to avoid
like, hey,
is like
I'm
the
a cleric,
feeling
blah,
of
blah, blah.
not so much immersion breaking of the guy just showing up and saying, "Hey, I'm a cleric," but rather like it feeling like the DM showing off a cool NPC rather than like this is
An
a interest like
living person.
This is a character that's also a part of the story you're in, kind of thing.
Yep.
Going back to how we build differently for our cultures in our worlds, there are I know pros and cons to both. I'll say I think your worlds are a lot more believable, just because everything is very fleshed out. Because like that's how you build it, whereas I do like the cool thing and sort of fill in the blanks.
Before you continue, you have no idea how genuinely appreciative I am of that, of what you just said, because sometimes we play the game, right, and it's feedback time. We have something called feedback time after session, where the players give their feedbacks on everything that happened during that session and everything they felt about not only the session itself, but the world building, etc. And sometimes we have conversations where I'm like, did I really miss out on that much world building? Did I do a bad job?
What I'll say that's the one of the issues with that is I'll talk about like my issues with how I do it is that when I build everything around the cool thing and sort of work from there, there's some, mandatory but not important to the story things that sort of fall through the cracks. I am accepting of this because I think at the very least, if it's not important to like the story or game I'm trying to run, it can be a little bit half-assed or on the spots. And then maybe if like a player is really into that aspect, I flesh it out after the fact. Whereas I think a problem in your game is that because you work from the ground up, there's a bit of like
missing in
not
the middle
so
of the top.
fleshed out stuff that is part of the cool stuff that we have to like sort of take a break in the middle
100%.
of a session, like 30 minutes,
talk
like
about it.
flesh it out right
it.
then and there, to make sure
Yep.
it's known. I'll say personally,
I appreciate it.
I do prefer the way I do it. So that means that like the important stuff isn't the missing stuff. I do think it's a little more difficult when it's like the sort of important stuff for this world to be
I think
somewhat missing.
my biggest issue with Karael as how I have built it so far is I built a lot of the general stuff and a lot of the general cultures where haven't really dived super deep into like the nitty gritty of a lot of stuff. Hi Gerald, welcome in. Merry Christmas to you too. And like, can you tell Kitsune how huge she is? Kitsune, you're huge.
What's good? Ah, dude, you look huge.
But yeah, like a lot of like the cool things that I have planned and I have thought of and I have written down aren't really super detailed and like super fleshed out because I had been working on like 10 plus countries and their generalizations and like the political structure more than like the cool structure,
Yeah.
right? Um,
Oh, Manana, to sort of
so
like say on that, well, I can't speak for
mhm.
Alf, but from what I experienced in his game, he has like how it worked out, but it's like some fringe cases that fall through the cracks. Like we talked about it earlier, a player death, but you know, resurrection spells exist. But how does an adventurer guild go about resurrecting an adventurer when
In a
divine
city,
magic is
yeah,
very much a
in a
taboo
city where Glenn
subject?
Ban, yep,
So that's sort of
yep.
like, you know, sort of fell through the cracks a bit when
And like
thinking about it.
one of the biggest thing is because we have talked about this. One of the biggest thing is the empire that does actually house clerics and welcomes them and uh is the more divine area of Karael is at active war with the kingdom that you all exist in as adventurers. So it's like you can't really go and ask them for help, or you can't freely roam into that empire because you're either getting thrown in jail or killed, which is not great, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was gonna say something, but I forgot, so I will go into the Mind Palace
I'm sorry. I'm
and
sorry.
try to remember. No, it was something you had to say, but I also thought of something else I wanted to say, and that sort of pushed the other thing out of my mind. Oh yeah, the first thing was like, it's also not a big deal. Like I said, I prefer to do it my way. But at the end of the day, all
Mhm.
like the DM has to do is like see if it's like a good end for the session. Be like, all right, now that this thing was brought up, I just spend
Cook it
like a
up.
day or two
Cook
to
it up.
think about it and then write
Yep.
about it, and then it's all Gucci by the next time we play.
100%. And I think for the summer campaign, I'm honestly doing it like you are. I have taken a step back. Yes, we're in the world of Karael still. So honestly, the general empires and civilizations and everything I have already exist, which really helps. But I'm taking that one big aspect that we talked about, that one cool thing, and building the entire city around it. And I'm only building a city. I'm not building the whole empire around it. Yes, the empire is going to have implications to that big thing, and other countries are going to have stuff that big thing is causing. But that's not going to matter to you guys for a very long time. You're starting out in a city, like, as level 1 adventurers, right? So it's going to be this big thing. How do we solve it?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
is
yeah.
this big thing? How do we dive into it? What is it? What are we truly up against? What's going on? How's it impacting the world? How's it impacting us? Right? That's a really big thing. Also, Manina said you could have it where the empire or a kingdom house outlawed religion for generations, making it where worshippers had to be like very secretive. The issue with that, Manina, first of all, the gods are banished from the material plane, which is which makes it really hard to even be a cleric in the first place, right? Because a lot of the clerical texts, the divine texts, and temples were turned into ruins. The text burned. A lot of clerics purged, right? There was an entire war against anything divine for well over a millennia ago. So you also are now at the risk of, oh hey, I got clerical powers. I need to get out of this country. There's no way you're staying in this country when like the Kilsovian Empire, which is the huge divine empire, exists and just not migrating there, right? There'd be no reason to stay. You would hide it. If you're gonna hide it anyway, you would hide it and run away from your kingdom or empire to go to a safe place, because there is technically a safe haven for divine casters and divine believers in the world of Karael still.
Yeah. I will say, for your summer campaign, it does feel like the top-down approach, from reading from
100%.
your little descriptions you've given your players, where it does feel like society has sort of evolved around these sort of cataclysms, I'll call it, and are able to sort of at least profit or like do something with it. It's incorporated into how things work, and since it's so big, it's a pretty big part of the society. I will say, it is very much like Zenless Zone Zero, where
I never thought about that.
giant little spherical things called hollows appeared that sort of warp the quote-unquote material plane.
You wanna know what after I created it, right? I went back and looked at it and I was like, this is just every adventuring manga where like otherworldly gates open, like solo leveling and like stuff like that, where people have found a way to monetize it. There are adventures, there's an adventurers guild dealing with it, blah blah blah. But thankfully, I will say this. I am going to name drop the campaign here.
I thought you already did that.
Yep, so I don't feel bad about it. The Riftwalkers is nothing like that. I made sure of it. Because, yes, you can feel the inspiration where it's coming from, but the campaign itself, oh, I promise you, rifts are not gates. You do not no one simply goes into a rift and, like, does adventuring. That's not how that works, right? You'll get much more details on it when when the editor kind of works with... I already have everything recorded. Now it is up to my editor to edit it, and when it's finished, oh, you guys are gonna learn a lot, which is gonna be fun.
Oh, did you need to write lines for that? Or not write, but record?
Not for the trailer, I will. This isn't the trailer yet. This is behind the scenes footage that I'm... so I've decided to do like a lot of behind the scenes progression into the world of Riftwalkers and the city of Viremontis, which is going to be like really exciting. So like people will get to see how I'm building the world. Not with too many spoilers, right? It's going to be very... a lot of it is going to be the stuff you see in like the first 10 minutes of the first session. Right? They're going to be, oh, I know that. Oh, I know that. But then a lot of it's going to be kept a secret from me.
Yep. I will say, so if we want to get back around to like building cultures and the top-down approach and the bottom-up approach, this has nothing like to do with like stuff that just how I do it, which I will say is not a great way to do it, but when like a player does ask me about like this aspect that I haven't fleshed out because it's like not super important and I have to come up with it on the spot, what I like to do, and sometimes this does bite me in the ass, but whatever, because it's fun, I enjoy just like going to town on it. Like I make it up on the spot and make sure it's detailed and make sure it's crazy, and then sometimes my players like really grab onto that and try to do stuff with that too, and I think it's fun because it's wacky and wild, but it's kind of a headache, so I don't super recommend doing it. But it is funny and the players will have fun. And if you're one of my players who is watching this as a VOD, scrubbing every single second I mention them, I'm talking to you, Lizard. I am talking about you in this instance. I am talking about Scrobbles in this instance. If you remember that whole thing that happened. And to a lesser extent stands, but we don't really talk about that.
No, honestly, the very little amount I played in your world of when we did a one shot for it, I absolutely fell in love with the very little part I saw. And like I cannot express this enough because I know every time you're gonna ask me after a session, okay, what do you think? And I'm gonna be like, oh my god, it was so good. First of all, I'm not as good as you when it comes to giving critique and like feedback. I wish I was. I wish I could help you the way you help me. I genuinely do. I'm not. And second of all, Kit, I'm gonna make you accept it eventually. You're an amazing DM.
I
Like a
refuse.
genuinely
I'm
amazing
not
DM.
that good.
I will say this straight out here right now. Kit's a better DM than I am, and I love playing in her world, and I love playing as a player for her. Genuinely, like, if I could, I would be playing in a Kit campaign every day.
Maybe. Who knows?
Mm-hmm. I know, and that's all that matters. Also, Manina, for your question, I'm hoping the rifts that I have created will be rifts that doesn't exist in 5e and doesn't exist in any other RPG. I'm genuinely trying to make something original in terms of my rifts and in terms of what they are and how they function and everything. And you know, I hope I do a good job.
I'm sure you
Yeah.
will.
So, we've talked a bit about like creating a world and creating the culture. And we kind of touched upon this a little bit before, but we after our D&D session, we were talking about Bleach and like the villains in Bleach, right?
We were, yes.
Let's be honest, every great world needs a great villain. But why? Like, why does every good world need that one? Not even one. In my opinion, like, every country needs multiple villains, and like, a lot of countries need multiple BBEG level characters, which are just genuinely just villains for being villains, like evil for being evil's sake. Why is it like that? And why does it work better when it's like that?
Well, I won't necessarily say it works better like that. I'll say it works the easiest because there's less to go wrong. If something's evil and it's trying to kill you, basically, whether you think of that thing as evil or not, it's easy to stand up against that thing because you don't want to die. It is how it works. If we're talking about designing bad guys and why you kind of just do default to the evil guy, especially for a D&D campaign, this came up when we were talking about villains, but like, if you're not going for like the parts that make a villain good is like the parts that the characters are able to experience from the villain. If they're like too out of reach and you never get to see them, stuff like that, it doesn't resonate with the players. The big one that came up with like relatable villains is like you're trying to like a lot of the time it's not just being relatable, but it's trying to make you feel bad for it, and you can't make a player feel something, like force them to feel it. So if you have these sort of multi-layered villains, such writings will honestly backfire if you just are unable to grab the players with that villain, and why just having like the evil villain that, you know, they want power, they want to rule the world, they want whatever, they're bringing in an evil god that they worship or whatever. If like the end of the day it's going to kill them, then yes, they're going to want to stand up against that thing. They're going to want to protect themselves and protect the people they care about. And you can also write some stuff about that too. but it's easier to just go all in as that person's trying to kill everybody and must be stopped kind of angle, rather than like, even if that is part of the evil villain's plan, if them starting to be sympathetic is something you want, it's you might be in for a surprise when you're trying to do that with your players. If I'm going to give an example, if you ever done Curse of Strahd, I think it says this in the book, or I watched someone else talk about it. But Strahd being like this overarching villain only really like works not as like everyone, like all the NPCs talking about how villainous he is, but with Strahd showing up and like fucking things up, trying to kill you, trying to make things bad. Like he's only effective. It only becomes personal if Strahd himself is like there from time to time, talking to the players and doing things. Whether or not they're sympathetic with him doesn't matter, but like if he is just this like looming threat over Barovia that the players never really think about, like, or like actively see, then it's it just isn't that impactful. He's not as good, and honestly, in combat, Strahd is kind of a chump. So if they're just there to kick his ass, they can kind of easily do it if they like have done the quest up until that point to like get the items that kill him. So I don't necessarily, so just to sum everything up, I don't necessarily think that like the pure villainous villain is the best way to do it. It all depends on the story once again, but it is the one with the least amount of holes that can occur when trying to make the villain. So my advice would be for villain making, do make them villainous, make the players just naturally want to stop them as a main motive, but then sprinkle in some things about like the motivations of the villain, maybe things about the past, maybe sympathetic stuff. And like if they grab onto that, good, maybe you can like work with that. Maybe there's a complete turn. And you can do something with that. And if the players don't, then you can just fall back onto that's the villain, we should kill them kind of thing.
Speaking of like Strahd, right? So Strahd is a vampire, which is technically not a playable race in D&D, right? But I've had players who want to play as vampires, right? And I don't really want to like suggest Dampier to them because while yes it is close, it's not a vampire.
Yeah, it's not really what they're looking for.
Yeah, so I've looked into like race making, right? Creating a brand new race for D&D, and it's genuinely hard. I don't know how some people do it. Like, for example, we got Zamans, which is coming out not for episode 3 but episode 4 of the Worldbuilders Lantern, where we'll be talking about it, but that has like new races. Loot Tavern made a couple different books that has different races into it. Evan Blair Art, who is creating the world of Horizon, that has different races in it, and I'm genuinely just sitting here going like, how do you add depth to a playable race that isn't just like, oh, this is elf but different, oh, this is vampire but different? Like, for example, the drow, right? Drows are technically elves, but they're also very different to like high elves and like wood elves, and like wood elves are different from high elves, and all of them are genuinely different. So it's not just elf but like forest flavored or underground flavored, underdark flavored. There we go. I could finally find the word. Jesus Christ. I feel like it's so hard to make a good race.
Well, just like a new, like mechanically, or just like in the world?
Well, I feel like if you're gonna make it in the world, you have to make it mechanical, right? You have to give them lore, and you have to give them different stuff that doesn't exist in the other races. And honestly, with 2024 and how much the races get, right? Which I feel like is a very good improvement to 2014 for some of them, for most of them. Uh, I feel like it's just become even harder to create good D&D races.
Well, it depends on what you're trying to do. So first of all, I will say, you don't super, like, I think it's easier to create new races in lore because you can instead of just use the old races. Like, your world is the world you make, and the races you put into it don't need to be, even if like they are just elves, they don't need to be strict to what the elf is in any of the D&D books. All right, hands up. Anybody here know about the various planes in Magic the Gathering?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess.
We're gonna talk about elves there. For the most
Yeah,
part,
go
a
ahead.
lot of the elves are just, the forest dwelling creatures, very much one with nature, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I should have talked about goblins, because, never mind. But y'all know Lorwyn. The elves there are very different. There's a natural aspect of them, but that's like not their main shtick. Like, if anything, they don't like work with nature, they more control it to do their needs. And they are hella racist towards everybody else and kill on sight.
Yes.
To the fact that, good old what's-her-face, the elf planeswalker that was part of the Gatewatch,
Oh wait.
that like does jack
I
shit.
think I know who you're
There's like
talking
only
about.
two, but they
Yeah.
both do jack shit, so, The one from Zendikar, basically, like, they are like just a regular elf from Zendikar, and they're just, one with nature kind of thing. Then they like ignite their plane spark, go to Lorwyn, and they're like appalled with just how awful the elves of this plane are, because they are like bloodthirsty and deadly to everything that is not an elf. And even if you are an elf, because the elf thing of that plane is all about beauty and elven beauty, if like you have scars, if you were disfigured or something, you get like exiled, and more likely than not, like hunted and killed. But that just goes to show that elves can be different. It is your world, and the races there can. Nissa, thank you very much. That's what it was. I'm glad you're more in tune with the lore. I've been checked out of Magic the Gathering lore since War of the Machine, and even then, that's like, I looked at it for a second and thought it was really terrible, and then there we go. Sorry, where was I? But it is like your world, so like you don't need to like make new races for things. Like, if you need like a race that like is very natural, that is one with nature, you can just put elves in there, even if they are going to be slightly different, like they're more feral or something like that, because they are too in with nature. I mean, after War of the Spark. War of the Spark was against fucking dragon dude. And I'm sorry, I'm just like, the names are just not with me. Nicobolus, there you go. I'm talking about the whole thing with the Phyrexia. There we go. That was the machine one, I believe. Hi, SK. As we were saying before, a lot of this comes down to, like, I think this is the one that comes up easily, is tieflings and how that race is implemented. Like, Alf does it in his current world, like the sort of regular, what it says in the handbook kind of thing. There were some relations, either sexual or via pacts with demons in someone's bloodline, and then eventually someone gets born with more demonic traits. In all of my worlds, they're just like a demonic race.
Yes.
They're not from hell. but they just like maybe like some demons or devils came from the Nine Hells and escaped the contract stuff, but they are just
Yep.
like they are born like that, and they are just like that because evolution made them like that. There's no like mixing of bloods between man and devil. In a lot of my
Mm.
worlds, they're just like that. Similar with like Dragonborns too. They're just
Oh.
born like that. Um,
Mm.
and like sometimes you do make a new race because like you want something specific. Because like evolution made them that way, kind of thing. Like it's not easy. Like maybe your forest environments are so harsh that's like it wouldn't be like the spry elf that would like live there. It would be like something more burly, that would live there. Maybe you can just like put orcalized in there, but you also need something like elf like too, so you have to like make this buff elf or something like that. You see this a lot in not the planescape, because anything can be in planescape, but Spelljammer,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
where it's like in
mm-hmm.
space, and space
Yeah.
just has the weirdest conditions and thus need the weirdest races that can survive there, you know? Um,
Yep.
I think that's
Like
when you sort
I
of
was.
make this new race. Um,
Uh-huh.
and yeah.
I
And
was running like a Spelljammer, the Academy book, for like a couple of new to D&D friends, and I was like, ooh, so you guys are really new. I don't want you to take you through something you don't know entirely and put you guys in a difficult world with not really defined settings too much at the time. And I was like, look, here are some books. Which book would you guys like to run through? And I gave them a brief description. They chose Spelljammer. Um, and like in, I believe, the last uh, episode of that Spelljammer book, you fight a Giffen Yankee in space, and I'm just like, oh, gifts in space. Never really thought about that.
I mean, that's all I think. Like they're Jedi.
Yeah,
Like that's what they were made
yeah,
to be. Some are more in tune with the Force, and some are more in tune with weapons that are supposed to basically be lightsabers.
yep. But like, this was after I played Baldur's Gate 3, right? So I was like, oh, gifts are like, that's like really cool. They have like cool lore, blah blah blah. And then we play Spelljammer, and I'm like, GIF in space. Okay, okay, I can work with this. This is interesting.
Honestly, it's more or less entirely where they're from. If they're not in space, they're from a plane that's basically space.
Yeah.
Mana, just
Oh.
to say, on you, I see you, my brother. Is it goblins are great because they're like Warcraft goblins, except they have to like share their, like because you only see like the steampunk Wonderland goblins in like the goblin cities. Uh, but when it comes to Ravnica, when when like sort of self-made goblin rocket boots makes them crash into a uh God, I'm so bad with names. Selesnya, fuck me, green white nature preserve, or like a fucking uh bureaucratic white blue law firm. And like there's like some whole big debacle. It's really funny. I think Goblins work well because there's like every other color combination there that has to deal with their bullshit.
Mm,
Anyways, magic talk over.
mm. uh, honestly, two separate questions coming back to back. One is more of a statement than a question. Feel free to hop in on that statement. Uh, uh recently I was scrounging the r/d&d, right? And I was like, there was a question there. It was like, alternate histories. What if magic never existed in the world of D&D? And I'm just sitting there going, you don't
That's
really
this
need to
world.
think that hard. Yeah, you don't really need to think that far. Do you live in on Earth? Yeah. Hi. We don't have magic. Uh, Shit didn't go down very well. Shit is still not going down really well, if you ask me.
I do have something to say about that, but I want to hold it off for a question I'll ask a little bit later. But
Mhm.
yeah, you know, World Without Magic, that is this one. If you like, you want it to be like, if it want to be not in this time period, it's like literally medieval times.
Yeah. My like the main question I want to ask was right. Every D&D campaign has this hub of a sort, be it an adventurers guild, being a great tavern, an inn, something, right? Where like the party goes to on a consistent basis, and it might be where they start, but if it's not, it's definitely where they end their day. Um, how do you really create a memorable place like that? Because like when I'm trying to build the guild halls, every time I'm like, I want the players to look at that guild hall and go, oh, this is here, right? This is home. This is where I am most of the time. This is where I get my quests. This is where I talk with other adventurers. This is where I interact with, be it guild members, guild workers, their fellow party mates, um, where they go to have a drink, talk about how the other person's adventure went, etc., etc. I want my players when they walk into a guild hall to go, "Oh yeah, this is the guild hall." Like, "Oh yeah, this is the Durnhold Arc Adventures Guild." Or, "Oh, this is the main Arc Adventures Guild." Like, I believe I was able to make two very separate guilds with two very separate looks, but it still felt like the Arc Guild at the end of the day.
Uh, a good way to do that is, first of all, make it lived in. The people that are there matter, because the people who interact in that place matter.
Mhm.
Obviously, like in lore, it is the place for them to get their quests. But the thing you want to sort of avoid is to make it like out of lore. That's the place the players go to get their quests, and that's the only reason why they're there. You got to put in the reasons why they're going there in the world, like in the RP, in character. And of course, you know, the people make it well. Just describing the scenes, like making it feel lived in. I always describe the people that are there. Is it busy? Is it slow? If it's slow, then, you know, you should probably still add at least like one or two people.
Mhm.
Reliable faces are good too. To make it interesting to the players, I would recommend tying it to. I'm gonna cough a bit because I've been talking too much. Give me just a sec.
No worries.
It was more like a clear my throat thing, anyways.
Mhm.
Um, like tie. How I'll have character ties. Like if it's, a character is always trying to do something in their downtime, make it like available to do that within this place. Um, a good way to do it is like there was a character who wanted a player um, in our campaign who wanted to do research, and they would go to like a collegium in order to do that. I think
Mhm.
if you wanted to make the guild more memorable, you just put the study in the guild, um, and that's where they go to study. And then there's always going to be like other guild researchers and or like wizards that are there too that can always help or give a
Yep.
hand or just talk to, because like that's where you're there most of the time. That's probably where your friends are, kind of thing. An easy one is also like have it be part guild, part bar. You ever watch Fairy Tale kind of thing?
Oh
Um,
yeah.
where like it's like a good place where like more boisterous characters can like revel in their most recent escapades with a crowd that will gather around them, or like if you want like the DM to put that in, like if like they're known characters in the guild, or like they've come back from like a recently good quest, there's rumors about them now. Uh, Members of the guild will go to them and say like, "What was that all about? Like how the last quest goes? I need to hear the deets, girl." That kind of thing, and just make it feel more inviting for them. Um, as like, yes, this is your home. The people there like you here. You like the people there. This is the place where you relax and have fun, kind of thing. And that's how you do it. Basically, put character motivations there, or like if there are character motivations, keep them in this area, just so you don't have to like make various different places and they all just
Different hubs.
feel a little bit worse because like it's like half of your DMing is spent at each area for the players. Make it feel lived in, and make it feel more than just a gameplay mechanic, like the quest board in a game where like there's an exclamation mark, you press A on it and then get your quest kind of thing. Try to distance yourself from that sort of feeling.
Gotcha.
Yep.
I will say this. For the Durnhold branch of the Arc Guild, I think for the first session, I will take 100% accountability. That place did not feel lived in. That place did not feel alive. It felt empty and it felt kind of boring. And even I felt that running it as a DM.
I will say, if I'm to cut you off, I think in the first session
Yes.
it did feel alive enough because you gave us the initial description of the entire town. We had interactions with the guards, or at least a player did, which, you know, makes the whole world feel lived in as long as you're paying attention as a player. It was more strictly business in the guild itself, but
the second session when you guys went.
Yeah, then there was like we went to a Knight's Hold, and that also felt like, you know, a little bit in depth. We had some talking there. It was the second session where we did come back, and there wasn't really anyone there, so it did feel a little bit lifeless. Yes.
But I feel like for the third session, well, fourth session, when you guys did go back again, I feel like this time I was able to make it feel more lively, more lived in, more people to interact with, more NPCs that I'm hoping felt alive and had individual characters, like characteristics.
And I think it was. I think the only downside, the only thing that went wrong with that, was that my character was unconscious for all of this, so I couldn't interact with them. Yeah. I could feel it when the other player was interacting with it. And of course, when I did come to consciousness, I, you know, talked to the guy that was there. We had interactions as if I already knew them, because theoretically I did, even if it was as a player my first time.
Yep. And like, that is honestly my bad. Thinking back on it, I don't care how long it took to actually come back from the ruins. I should have had you up and running when you were entering Durnhold again, regardless of time, because I felt this is... So, DMs, a warning. Do not take time too seriously if it means your players get to experience the world that you have lovingly built more, and if you're restricting your players from experiencing that world, not only does it feel bad for them, trust me, as someone who has experienced it as a DM, it feels bad for you. It really does. I genuinely wish I could have seen Kit doing all those interactions alongside Hilda. I wish I could have seen Maisha interact with everything. It did feel, like, looking back on it, like you missed an experience, and it doesn't feel good.
I will say, so for those of you who know that D&D mechanics like the back of your hand, there is a mechanic for this that I ignore almost entirely. If you go down but then are stabilized, you are out for, I believe it's a D4 amount of hours or a D6, something like that. It might just be 1 hour. I forget how it is. I was pretty sure you rolled for it.
I run it as an hour. I run it as an hour because I feel like anything above an hour just feels bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, especially if the others are up and running and doing stuff. It just feels bad.
I never make the player wait because I don't want them to be like out of it for an hour, because like there's only two options. Either the rest of the party moves on and like they're just not playing for whatever the in-game amount of an hour is, which is a pretty long time if you're like you are doing stuff. The players are doing stuff, and if not, then they're just like you know, just taking a short rest. They're just sitting until you wake up. So how I always run it is you are up at the end of the scene. If you are
Yes.
stabilized, whoever's alive gets like first crack at, the loot, checking things out on the enemy's bodies, checking out the room in full now that
Hmm. Hmm.
the deadly things are now gone. Um, and as soon as everyone has finished that, the player is up. They can then do a thing that maybe they thought the other players missed, um,
Hmm. Hmm.
or something that's like more specific for them that they want to do. And if they think everything's good, then everyone moves on. So that's always how I do it.
Yep.
You're unconscious until the scene ends, and then you're back up. You can continue the
Which
scene if the
which
player
makes
wants
sense.
to. Because
Which makes sense.
worst thing you can do
Because
in D&D is make it
have
so that a
someone be out of
player
it.
is like not doing anything. 'Cause
Yep.
that
Yep.
sucks ass. That's the worst. That's why CC's the worst. Um, I don't mind it when
100%.
players CC, but like I be really, really careful when monsters are able to CC my opponent, my players, because nothing like makes someone whip out their phone faster than being like, oh, like when it's my turn in combat, I can't do anything, so I'm like down for like 2 turns, not doing anything. What's the
Yeah.
point of me
Yeah.
being here, kind of thing. So,
No. No. 100%. 100%. Like we talked about this when I was kind of like building the world and building the story, where don't get too married to the story, right? The same goes for the rules of the game. Don't get married to the rules if it. And I usually don't. For some reason, for that specific part, I was like, no, you were down. You should be out, even if you're stabilized for a amount of time. And I enforced that rule, which took away from the fun of it. And it, like, the rules are there as guidelines. It should never take away. It should only be used to add to the fun and like to the campaign, not take away from an experience.
oh yeah, Manana, that's 100% how I do it too. Um, I don't know if you're here at the start because you're talking about like how we like build a culture in the worlds we build, and I do it from top down with like the cool thing and everything. Sort of watch the VOD for the whole thing. But my example was I played Monster Hunter, um, and so I would build a world where like how does a world revolve around a lot of people going out to hunt these giant monsters? That's exactly how it worked out. Like the trade and
Mm.
stuff, and like the things that make the town where the monster hunters live is like very rich because like other societies, other cities that aren't like right next to this huge wilderness of T-Rexes next just like outside their doorstep don't have access to these things.
Mm.
But I
Mm.
do love that too. I incorporate that a lot into
Mm.
um, my worlds. Where like
Honestly,
if the guild
this
is
is why I
big
kind
in
of
the
want to
city,
send
it's
you.
like pretty like important that it exists within,
Mm.
or like it's a pretty big key in the whole city's survival kind of thing, the whole city's economy.
Yep. Which is why I want to send you Heliana's Guide to Monster Hunting. As you can imagine, monster hunting being in the name of the book, I feel like, especially for your world, you could like get inspirations from that book that I can't use in my world, and like use it to enhance your world a lot more. Which, don't get me wrong, even just having read your world where it was written only for a one shot, it's already so rich. But like having that on top of that, it'd be like I feel like you as a DM could just really, really, how do I say this? Not come alive, but like it could light a very good spark in you. I feel like.
I'll check it out. I'll check it out. Uh, we sort of like went on a lot of things. I don't know, any other topics you want to touch on? Because we talked about villains and we talked about implementing races.
Mhm.
Anything you wanted to
Like,
add
uh,
for those?
honestly, for villains, my thought on villains is just very streamlined. I think it's like have your bad guy be a bad guy, right? Have like if you really want to make a bad guy that makes your characters feel emotions, there's nothing easier to, like, when you're playing D&D and you're having fun and laughing and going ha ha hee hee, putting in a piece of shit that makes players feel rage, because laughing is when you're the most vulnerable to feeling any other emotion as well. Now, if you get a characters, if you can get your characters to like rage at a villain, which isn't hard when you're making a evil villain, I feel like it adds so much more to the players who are playing at that time, where they can just really feel it. And that's why I think like just pure piece of shit evil bad guys are the best, because there's no one who will make you feel emotion like the guy who killed a bunch of civilians for no reason, like no actually explainable feedbackable reason, and they're just evil for the sake of being evil.
All right,
As
all
for
right, all
what
right.
else did we talk about? What else did we talk about? Did you ask?
Races, implementing new races.
Yeah, for me, just races are hard. Like that. That's also why I asked you that, because I see Evan make races. I see the new races in like Heliana's, Ryoko's, Zamon's is gonna come out with some new races, and I already looked a bit into those. Oh my god, I don't know how they manage it. They feel so unique. They feel so good, and I'm just like,
I think
you
it's because
guys have something
you
that
know,
I
you don't,
don't.
you shouldn't be looking at like the uniqueness of it. Honestly, make what you think is cool is how it should be. Um, the only things that like, in terms of making a race that like you don't necessarily think is cool is what was I gonna say? What was I gonna say? What was I gonna say? What is I gonna say? Oh yeah, like so when someone asks to be a vampire was your example.
Mhm.
Just ask the player what parts of a vampire do you want that to have, and then just make it balanced. Um,
Yep.
because like as a DM, you don't really need to be making new races unless your players want to do that. And then you either
Yeah.
just make something balanced, what you think is cool if it's like a race you created, or if it's a race a player wants to like play because it's new and they want it, ask them what they want that thing to do, and just balance it accordingly.
Yep. Uh. Oh. Time to do. Could you like expand upon that, like foil villains? Like, what does that mean? Just genuinely no idea. That's why I'm asking.
Foils are like uh I forget if it's like direct opposite or like sort of opposite side of the same coin kind of thing, but it's like man, how do you describe that actually?
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I'm
Or
like,
like outright
I
describe
wanna
it to like
answer
someone,
that.
because I know what a foil is, but like it's
Hmm.
it's just like the opposite of a person, but still makes sense. You know what? That's what it is. It's the opposite of the players, the protagonist, which is the whole party. Um,
Hmm.
but then there's like different aspects of the foil. Like, is it specifically like their morals or like their methods kind of thing?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
like how much of a foil is Vegeta to Goku kind of thing, or is the true foil Frieza? Because Frieza is just like straight up evil, whereas Goku's the pure of heart kind of thing.
So
Contrast to the theme of the
I
party. Yeah,
feel
that's a good
I
one. Just
feel like
contrast of the
I
theme.
feel like having a contrast as a team of an entire party is like so difficult, because if your players are at least like semi uh knowledgeable, or even like they don't even have to be semi knowledgeable, if they're like anything like my players, right? They'll make characters that are basically foils of each other already. So when you start making foil villains, one of them is eventually gonna hit a little bit too close to home of just another player, right? And it's like, oh, well, because for example, right? Um, if I had to give an example, it'd be like Bonnie, from Adventures in Karael, right? Which is morally ambiguous. Will do anything to survive. Um, will like kill, will steal, will do anything. And then there's Liliana, which is like the moral compass of the party, which is lawful good, while honestly I'd give Bonnie like a chaotic evil almost, if not chaotic neutral. She started off, I do think she genuinely did start off chaotic evil, with how the character backstory was designed and like everything to it. And then she progressed into chaotic neutral, and then she kind of progressed into neutral neutral, in my opinion, with the story going on and Rhea being Rhea and Rhea not being amazing at playing like evil characters. But there was also really good character growth in that. Because like Bonnie at the start was not Bonnie where we left off. And even like Maisha is a really good contrast to Bonnie as well, where Bonnie is a coward, Maisha is a full-fledged adventurer. Like, will go fight and like try to get rid of stuff that are quote unquote evil that could pose a risk to the civilians. Meanwhile, Bonnie's like, that sounds a bit too dangerous. I'm not for that. I would rather get out of here alive, and what happens to the civilians? Well, they're not me now, are they? Sort of character.
I will say, in terms of foil nemesises for party members, something I do like doing. I don't like it making a backstory character a foil. Bad guy for that specific character. And I kind of don't like it when a player specifically makes that too, because it's like it loses like impact if there's like how do I call it? It loses emotional impact, like character growth.
Yes,
If like
I agree.
the player making the character designed to grow already wrote in a foil they want to bounce off of,
Yeah.
So what
Like
I like to do is I make the foil in game where
100%.
and my players know this because I do it a lot. Sometimes if a bad guy, a one-off bandit or whatever, got off the hook, they were able to get away, they're coming back, and maybe they've trained a bit, and maybe they've learned techniques that contrast another party members, especially if said party member talked to them a lot, and there was a lot of dialogue between them. They may end up either taking it to heart, but in a different way, or just disagreeing with them outright, and then just being like at odds with them whenever they reoccur. That's what I like doing. Whenever there is like a small minor bad guy, which is just a nameless bandit, that any player talked to for any amount of time, I mean, if they're not dead, they gotta come back eventually. Just how it works.
Like, I will say this in the kindest way I can, as a DM, right? I love when my characters build their backstories and flesh it out. Sure, go ahead, flesh it out, If you give me a BBEG in your backstory, how about you run the next campaign? This is my kindest way of saying it. Cause don't give me a BBEG in your backstory. Like
You can give a bad guy, but not like a big bad guy that like
yeah,
is like so bad, and like the plan is so high scale that it should be the main campaign.
yeah, that's exactly what I mean when I say BBG. Cause like You
Yeah.
can give me like I don't know, like this
Just
bandit
clarifying, because
killed. Yeah, yeah, no, for sure. You can give me like this bandit that killed your family member and now you're kind of hunting them down. For sure, that's a bandit. We can work around that. Like I can make that a bad guy for the campaign too, just nothing too big. But like, how do I say this? When you give me a city level threat as a bad guy in your backstory, I'm kind of like, why are you still alive? How did that happen? You're like a level 1 to 5 character,
and
right?
also how is like no one else in the world who are stronger trying to stop that guy kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's going on here? Like, uh, sometimes I can make it make sense, right? Like, let's say, no, this would be spoilers for Adventures in Karael if we ever do return to it. When we do return to it, because I do want to finish that story. I talked about this too many times. We got on a hiatus because people's lives are living, and everyone is like super busy. But it's also like one of my players' backstories is like this big bad evil creature, not even guy, creature. Um, and then I have another BBG from another character's backstory, and then I have this other BBG from this other, and like by BBG I genuinely mean BBG. Like characters that have world domination as goals, characters that are maybe not even city but world level threats, and I'm walking this level 1 party up the levels to face those big bad evil guys. Great, but now it is, don't get me wrong, D&D should always be our story, the story we tell. But like when you give me at that point you're giving me a story to run, right? You're not a character in the story. The story is you, and you have just went, oh hey, yeah, you're the DM. Run this for me. Run this
Yeah.
story arc for me.
The sort of
And
backstories that are like can only be run in a very specific way, that kind of thing. So like
yeah,
it's
exactly. And I'm just sitting there going like, yeah, sure. I don't have any other people to play D&D with, so might as well, right? Like it
yeah.
becomes that at that point. But like, for example, this was also another backstory in Adventures in Karael. You give me a character that has been discriminated by their own culture. Beautiful. There's no big bad evil guy there. That's just the culture. That's something we can face. That's something we can tackle, and something that I don't have to write an entire BBEG out for either. And that is extremely playable. And I would love to play that. And I'd love to run you guys through that. That is 100% amazing. But then, without giving any spoilers, you give me a guy that has the power to destroy the world if he gets like 1 or 2 more bodies. Well, you're level 3. How are we running you to that? Like, what hoops am I gonna run through? Because if that character has that much power, respectfully, like, you played in Adventures in Karael. You know your guild members in that. Like, before you guys could do anything, there's so many other NPCs and other big time adventurers who would just tackle that. 100%.
Yeah. And if it was for like
Like,
the party to tackle, it would be at like the very end game, but then there's still this overarching story that DM has planned. So like the only way to make it satisfying is like 2 back to back
two,
almost. Like
two endgame
world
stuff, yeah, which is like,
rates,
oh.
which is yeah. Okay.
I'll be very honest. This is not a complaint, right? But for Adventures in Karael, I didn't have to write a story.
Because you were given the story.
I was given multiple stories.
Interesting.
No, not just one. I was given like 5 different stories. And like, out of those 5 stories, only 2 of those was like the one I talked about, where we could actually tackle stuff. And then the other stuff is like, shit, these are either world-ending level threats, huge political battles, and I'm somehow gonna have to run this. And okay, this is kind of my weakness as a DM. I can't say no.
That is your weakness. You just gotta say no.
Yeah.
When things get overcomplicated, you gotta say like, nope, that is like way too much.
Like when stuff happens, I have to be like, I love your backstory, I really do. Go write it in a book. Go write how that comes out in a book, because I really do want to see it and I really do want to read it. But like, that's an entire story, man, and you want me to pull 5 other people into this story? Sure, like, yeah. Yeah, I gotta get better at, like, saying no. Because all this time I was a yes and sort of DM. And I take pride in that, right? Guys, you gotta say no sometimes. Like, you can't always say yes and. Because when you do, things get convoluted.
Yeah.
And even as a DM, you do get burnt out. When you're yes-anding everything.
Can't yes and forever. There's gotta be a stop to it.
Yeah, there has to be a no. And if your player goes, no, but, you just have to go like, no, just no. There's no buts, ands, or ifs about it, just no.
I am reminded, shout off in chat, so a little bit back to Nemesis, enemies, rivals, whatever. A foil nemesis or whatever. Tell me your stories about this, but I am reminded every single time it happened with a player, it's usually like a failed persuasion or intimidation attempt with a bad guy that like gets the talking going and gets like a mindset of the bad guy fleshed out. Like they want to persuade him to stand down, but it fails, so he takes the stance that no, and now they have like these conflicting viewpoints. Like they're like, stand down because of this reason. They just like go like, I don't agree with that, so I won't. And then
so,
they now get this like new enemy. And then there's like another one for intimidation. It's just like they try to intimidate, but the other guy just brushes it off and like just mocks him in return, and they're just straight up enemies. They dislike each other now.
So I actually do have a couple hilarious stories about this. One of my players is my younger cousin. We play IRL. By younger, he's like 5 years younger than me. And like, this bitch goes and waterboards someone for interrogation.
Oh yeah. It's effective.
And then cripples them by breaking their arms and legs.
Effective.
And this is all for interrogation.
Yep.
And like, when you do stuff like that, of course I'm gonna give you info. Like, who in their right mind wouldn't, right? And while this is happening, they do actually kill the guy eventually.
As it works.
Yep. And then they found out that he had a son who was in the military, in the kingdom's military training. This guy becomes an Oath of Vengeance paladin with the pure intent of finding this bitch.
Yeah, that's like, that's a hero story. Like these group of wandering bandits, you would call them, kidnapped your father and like tortured and killed him.
Yep. Like at that point, I'm like,
you have the soldier background and everything already. You know, like your martial training, it came from when you were in the army, and now you've became a vengeance paladin as when you left in order to get vengeance.
Yep. And at some point to that party, I did have to sit down and ask, so are you guys like trying to play villains? Because if so, we can have that going. Like I can create hero NPCs against you guys. Because like they burned down a shop because they didn't like the prices.
That is villain shit.
Uh,
That's like sometimes you can say it's like neutral, but that is villain shit.
yeah, and then they killed
Evil.
they killed one of the governing members of a city because they didn't like the kind of law he was trying to implement.
So you gotta kill
And
him.
like, yeah, and like a lot of the stuff is like, after a point I did have to just go, well,
Well,
uh
after a point, they should have like bounties on their head or something, right?
well, the funny thing is, one of them is already like a thief, and like a big time, well, medium time thief of like a big gang, and then one of these guys in this party is like this lawful good guy who is, they were playing in Taldore, and he's like one of the, a soldier in the, was it White Castle? Was that what his name was? I forget the name. I'm not good with names. Uh,
I know the place, but I'm not like up enough in like the intricate lore for CR stuff.
yeah. But like, yeah, they're in this. They're like a part of this, and like he's just watching all of this happen, and I'm like, you're no longer lawful good. Like, if these
Yeah.
guys get caught, you're getting caught with them. I'm sorry.
If they didn't
And
try
like,
to stop any of this happening, then they can't call themselves lawful good.
yeah, and it's like, he's like, what do you want me to go do? Say no and try to stop them and fight with them? I'm like,
Yes,
if you
actually.
have to, yeah, like if you have to.
Like
And then he
if
was
your
a new
morals
player, so
allow you to like kill people and burn down shops for you know, just annoyances against you, then that's not a lawful good character. Obviously, yeah, there seems like they're a new player, but the answer is yes. They
oh, yeah.
need to
Yeah,
stop
they,
that.
they were like a really new player, so they were like, but isn't that what the DM is supposed to do, to like put stuff to stop them? And I'm like, well, there's only so much I can do. Like, there's an entire level 9 Oath of Vengeance Paladin. They were level 5 at the time.
Well,
Literally running after you.
the stuff, yeah, the stuff the DM put to stop them is, you know, the laws, and now they're wanted,
Yep.
and now there's people after them because they are now evil.
Yep. So that was like one of the fun nemesis characters that
How was it?
I wasn't even forced to create. That was like handed to me in gold.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
it was beautiful. But other than that, honestly, I haven't really ever had a nemesis put against me as a player, because like when I'm playing Izart, right? The evil guys are this, well, quote unquote evil guys, is just this other empire that we're at a war with, and they're like extremely strong and they want to kill all my loved ones, so no fucking shit, I'm gonna fight against them. So maybe that, like, nemesis in that aspect where they want to kill my family, and I just want to have my family, well, by family I mean maid family, because Izard is an orphan, and like he's trying to look after his other orphaned brothers and sisters in the orphanage. He has his party he's also trying to look after. His party has families, etc, 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 right? So maybe nemesis in that aspect, but even then, that's not really, I feel, a nemesis. That's just war, and war is war, you know?
That's like two nemesis. Like nemesis not for like values or traits or something, but nemesis to like you in specific when they can start like targeting your family.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's not, they weren't targeting just my family, right? They're targeting the kingdom that I live in and want to kill everybody in that kingdom. And guess what? My family's in that kingdom.
Oh, that's just like
So,
a bad guy, yeah.
yeah. So it's just bad guys, and like, I, to the credit of my DM, he did it amazingly, right? And I never felt like, oh, hey, we can just sit down and talk with them and maybe try to, you know, like, I never felt like we could talk with them, basically. it was war minute one. Like, one of them tried to kidnap my sister the first time I met them, and then mind controlled me. Like, it's on site, bitch. What do you want? What do you want? You know? So, once again, credit to my DM. He did an amazing job for my villains, and oh, I have fun fighting them. I can say that. Which I feel like, I will say this. This is something that I have been lacking as a DM. Is like making my villains felt. Right? For example, in Adventures in Karael, Dr. Frankenstein is supposed to be like this huge villain. It's also from another character's backstory. It's supposed to be like a BBG level villain. I don't feel like the player cares. Like, I guess he doesn't feel villainous enough.
Well,
And
it's less about feeling villainous and more about feeling personal to the players to go for it. So, person who should have felt something aside because it was a character in their backstory, if they're just like happenstantial stuff, because I've been there for some of it, where like, you know, they create a creature and it appears in town or something and kills things and it's a general commotion. It's not really that personal to the players. They don't like feel a need to go after this guy in specific because like it's too general. It's just like a bad guy kind of thing.
One of the biggest reasons they should have to feel like they need to go after this guy, especially after seeing that creature, is they know how these creatures are made. You need a live human sacrifice for it to be created. They have seen this guy take a literal child, turn it into one of these monsters that they had to fight and kill.
But
and
even then, it's still not personal to the players. They're just killing guys, and they would want that to stop, but like nothing that's being like, we need to stop that guy, especially if they have other goals or other like character traits that were like, why would I want to just go after this guy specifically kind of thing.
No, I guess so. And
as far as I know, like three of the characters weren't like heroic enough to be like, hey, this guy's killing people, we need to stop them.
True. I guess one of my biggest issues was none of these characters had people who tied them into this world in that city, right? Except for Liliana, and Liliana's entire family is Imperial Knights. So anything that threatens Imperial Knights is so way above threatening you, where, like, if I can threaten Imperial Knights, you guys are just dead, you know?
Well,
I can't put you against that.
It also doesn't need to be, like family or like their livelihood threatened. They themselves can just be threatened. As I said before, with a character like Strahd, he is only impactful if he shows up in front of the other players and like spites them specifically so that they have a stake in it as well. Because if not, then it's just like, whatever kind of thing. And of course, you know, they could target family members if that's the case, if they had people in the city, but like, you could target them. You could even target like what they deem as precious. I do know one of the characters, Bonnie, really greedy. If you really wanted like a villainous thief that you wanted the characters to go after, if that thief stole Bonnie's money, Bonnie would be after that thief.
That's true. So
you just gotta do it like that. I think your characters were either a little bit too blank to have any particular thoughts because they were newer players, or too specific to care about like just a regular, you know, evil guy to go after, because that's not something they would want to do. Yeah.
Gotcha.
They would if like maybe the guild instructed them to, because the guild is part of the town that's being destroyed and they want that to stop, and then they probably would do it after that because they're not like averse to like helping. It's just like now there's something in it for them because the guild pays them, you know, that kind of thing. That's what I mean by designing the evilness of the villain first. and then like making them more in depth as the players interact with them first. Like it probably just would be just because you know character or players build so many different characters that like on the spectrum of motivation are just all over the place. For the most part, and it's very easy to write like this, like 'cause there's like basically no downside. You just make it like mandatory to fight a big bad evil guy, and they get to know them, and then when like they're now on the big bad evil guy's radar because they went to try and stop them because the guild ordered them to, or they literally met and they talked and now things are personal. That's when things get more interesting and characters are then sufficiently hooked to actively try to interact with and stop the villain you have created.
Yeah, honestly, I genuinely do think I have to just get better at writing and creating villains.
I had a problem with that too. Hooks. You gotta make sure your hooks are landing. If they're not landing, then you have to like scrap it. Just don't. If the hook didn't land, just if you can just like write it off, like it didn't work out, just try to go for something else. Because it will be a very boring campaign if no one is interested in like this, the major thing going on because none of them were hooked into it. Hooks, 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 hooks.
100%. That's something I have to work on. So today's gonna be a bit of a shorter Worldbuilders Lantern, solely because, as you guys can imagine, I did like 6 hours of Baldur's Gate 3 beforehand. But before we do end, we did talk about adding a new segment into the Worldbuilders Lantern, which is just reacting to r/D&D. And I did find 3 good stories that I want to read out. Which I feel like everyone could just enjoy a good laugh or a nice story. Funnily enough, as I say that, the title of the first post is "I cried while my party watched my poor character suffer." Now I swear I've read this, so it's not as bad as it sounds.
There's some very interesting horror stories in D&D horror /D&D horror stories.
Oh yeah. So, this one goes. We have been running our campaign for a while now, and about 3 months in, I made a deal to make my druid extremely powerful. I got an amulet that gives my druid the ability to wild shape into some really strong creatures, but I was only allowed to keep one emotion, chosen at random. I rolled and it was sorrow. I ran with it and became a depressed spider that never shuts up. My favorite line is sad chitter chatter. Fast forward nearly a year, and we got into a major town with a bizarre type of doctor called a therapist. At first, everyone we talked to said he changes people in ways no one understands. We all got the out of reference character, so they sent the giant spider to the doctor. What I did not know is, those bastards actually had another friend who was a therapist write questions for the depressed giant spider. First question was, do you keep your true self hidden behind your giant spider form because you're afraid it isn't good enough to be accepted by the world? This went on for some time as the party sneakily searched his office. By the end, we were laughing so hard we were all crying. To make matters worse, they signed my spider up for weekly sessions, and I have to roll to see how well therapy went, and that now decides which emotion I have. I did get an ability though, the Web Cocoon of Safety. It prevents psychic damage. I both love and hate the randomness that is this game, especially when you have a group of friends as crazy as you are. Honestly, the first thing I'm gonna say, that's a sick way to gain a new ability. Like, kudos to the DM, genuinely.
It's neat.
That sounds like so much fun. It's interesting. It's nice. You also aren't stuck to that one emotion for
Yeah,
that
that's what I would
character
say.
any
It is
longer.
pretty random, but like playing an entire campaign where you can only like express one emotion's a bit limiting.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hi Darklings. Hello, hello. Welcome in. I do wonder, like, how strong of a spider did they become for like Spider to be that strong creature that
I mean,
they
if it's
turned
just a
into?
giant spider, it's like
Oh gosh,
one
give
of
me a sec.
one of the better OG beast tamer picks, but
Yeah, for like a
I don't know.
wild
It's like a
shape, I
wild
feel like
shape thing.
it's.
That's I feel like you get better options like soon after.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So it's like for an entire year too. Like, I wonder what level they're running. I wonder, like,
Yeah,
why a
it's a very
spider?
it
What's?
feels like a very specific campaign to just always
Yeah,
be a
it
giant
does.
spider.
But once again, like, I wonder if it's just not a wild, like, a giant spider, and they actually like homebrewed this crazy strong spider. Cause like they said it's an amulet to wild shape into some really strong creatures. So it's like, spider? Really? That's what we're doing?
I just thought they were stuck as a spider because like it only referred to them being a spider afterwards.
Oh yeah. That's what I think so. Um, and like, if I had to like guess, right? For me, this sounds like that isekai of that giant spider girl.
Oh
It's
yeah,
like that just sounds like that, and it's hilarious to think about it. Why didn't you turn the giant spider into a waifu? I don't think that's how the amulet works. But
unfortunate.
that
Hate to see it.
that that does sound interesting though.
Sounds kind of hot.
Ooh, something. Okay,
You know
I
what?
read
I
about
will say
this.
it. I think
Yes,
that is pretty good. You need to be like level 8 to be a giant spider. So
really.
yeah, unless you're moon, but like you're actually pretty limited in wild shapes in terms of
Oh
power.
wow, interesting. Okay, so maybe it was a good amulet. Okay, so this is one that I saw and I was instantly like, okay, I want to talk about this in depth, right? Uh, the title of this thing is, have you cried during a D&D session? What moment triggered it? And they go on to explain, it's a bit embarrassing, but what got me was a few bits of bacon in a napkin. My character had spent all session trying to keep the peace and keep everyone safe, but without pulling rank. It had gone horribly wrong and there was a brutal combat scene. My character gave everyone a talking to, realizing she couldn't be a good leader if she was too scared to ruffle a few feathers. I was feeling like I'd failed my party, and also feeling like I'd been too hard on them. One of the party members slunk away as we were packing up to continue the journey, and I thought, damn it, I failed again, and I don't even know what I've done wrong this time. And then he came back and handed me a napkin with bacon in it because I'd been the only one who hadn't eaten before shit hit the fan. I'm not used to people noticing or trying to anticipate my needs IRL, and at least once a month I end up so hungry that I want to curl up and cry, but apparently being an adult means I gotta get my own damn food. So having an imaginary character notice my imaginary hunger just made me feel cared for in a way I wasn't anticipating. This is genuinely so cute, by the way, in my opinion. I'm like,
It's the small RP that matters.
you know, honestly, genuinely kudos to like the player who went to get that little bits of bacon and like give it to this player. It's like so good, so good. But the main thing I wanted to talk about, right? Because like, I'll say this in the kindest way I can. I'm a bitch when it comes to D&D. I cry easily. Especially if I'm the one DMing and has to explain this sad scene or something like that. I really get in my feelings. I really immerse myself into it, and I just like tears just start rolling. But like, a genuine question, like, what makes you feel emotion during D&D? Because like, when I'm playing, I'm constantly so immersed that it is, be it sadness, be it anger, be it any sort of mood, I'm just constantly in it. Like whatever my character's feeling, I am feeling. And like, I realized when we were playing, that's not the case for all players. So I'm just like, how do you trigger emotions from your players as a DM?
You can't. You can never force your players to feel. You can try your best, and that's what you do. It's sort of why I don't ever feel emotional when I do it, DMing. Because if things are getting emotional and I can feel it from the players, whether it be sad or anger or happiness or whatever, it's sort of like satisfying to me, because like I'm doing the good job of making the story have feeling to it, and people are thus enjoying it so far. That like it never, like I never get absorbed into it. So I've never like cried during a session, even if it was like a sad part. Cause like I'm just, if it's a sad part, I'm feeling good because I'm doing my job correctly as the DM. As for a player, it's hard to say that because I'm just not a player in for the most part. I'm sometimes a player, and I've never been like a player in any sort of long-running campaign. So it's hard to like understand like these sorts of like things. It's just because I don't have the experience with it. I will say I try to. I never get so into it. Every character reaction has a little bit of thought to it, and because of that, I don't let my emotions get into it, because it's not Kitsune's emotions, it should be the other player's emotions. So I have this pragmatism, it's good or bad depending on how you view it. When I go to RPing my characters, that sort of don't allow me to like get into this emotional headspace, so to speak. I can get in and out of it. You see that a lot with me DMing, for the emotional moments of characters I need to DM as RP, you know what I mean, NPCs. But it is like, it's never like fully immersed into the emotion. I can always pull it back when I need to.
Gotcha.
Just because like, there's like a really intense moment, but the intense moment does have to subside eventually when like someone else enters the scene and like breaks things up, and I need to like, can't stew on the emotion too much or else the story's not really going to progress past that.
Yep. For me, I guess I took a lot of acting lessons when I was like really young in like some big theatrical education centers due to my parents. I've always been like like I due to my father's intentions, turned out to do more jock stuff than the theater kid stuff, right? But I know at the end of it, like when I'm DMing, when I'm playing, I feel it a lot more where I prefer the acting and stuff. And I'm just like, I don't know, when I play, I guess I start, I don't know if I'd even call it method acting. I just put myself in as the character, right? I'm just that character, nothing else. And like I can totally shut off Alf, right? And be Isha, be Izard, be whoever I'm playing at that moment, which is difficult to do when I'm DMing, right? I can't do it when I'm DMing, so my NPCs, I do feels lacking compared to my PCs. But for my PCs, I don't know what it is, but like I guess I'd have to describe it as like I get in that zone of that character. I'm just that character. So for me, I never really had to try to feel anything or think about what my character is gonna do. Think about what my character is gonna feel, because while I'm playing that character, I am that character, right? Um, uh, I guess that's just the difference in like how people play that, how people play D&D, and how people portray their characters. Um, like I don't know if you felt it, right? Um, but like when we were playing that one shot with Rhea, I didn't have any idea what the personality of my one shot character was, because I literally created him on a whim, and he was a more gimmicky character. Supposed to be that fun gimmick character. And then for me, I think it takes 2 sessions. On the second session, I'm genuinely that character. On the first session, I'm kind of feeling him out, feeling out what that character is going to be, feeling out how that character is going to feel. And at the end of that first session, that's it. I never have to think again about my character, about what he's going to feel, what
always
he's
takes
need.
time to know how to play your character.
Yep. Which is why, like, you did say, oh, Tivik felt like Alf towards the end.
And I think that's fine.
Well, no, here's the thing. That genuinely wasn't Alf for the most part. That was, oh, that's Tivik. A little bit more snarky, a little bit more sassy. That's the dragon he is going to raise in front of him, having been raised, and is now talking back. And it's like, at that point, he was more like that. You know how when our fathers age, they become a bit more, well, at least mine becomes a bit more relaxed, a bit more snarky with their comments, a bit more when you have started coming closer to adulthood, or when you have reached adulthood, they treat you like not a child anymore, and then like as an actual adult and as an actual person. That was what Tivik was doing. But because the Tivik previously, I hadn't really figured out how I wanted to do anything. He was a bit more cautious, a bit more just a character who hadn't really found his foothold yet. But the moment you brought me my baby dragon in the form of a big dragon just talking shit, I was like, oh, I'm getting in that zone. That's just me right there.
I see.
So yeah, I guess it really is a difference with how people play D&D. And I do guess with that being said, I guess I am a better player than I am a DM, and I hate it because I really want to be a good DM. And I don't feel like I'm a good DM yet. I feel like I still have a good ways to go before I can
same here.
say I'm a good DM. Like, I don't feel like my NPCs really feel like NPCs with their own personalities the way they're meant to. And I feel like I fail as a writer when I'm writing villains, and my world building still lacks a lot of major components, which I have to get better at, and I have to be able to explain better. And I feel like when I'm able to do all of that, I'll be able to call myself a good DM. But for now, I will say I am mediocre at best, but hey, at least I like running the game. So I guess that makes me a better DM than some.
One of the better DMs I've had. I always have the good old Kit DM rankings in my head of every person I've ever played in a game with. And you are above average, which is more than I can say for other DMs, and that's good.
I appreciate that. Hopefully, in the future, I can climb up those rankings and be an actual good DM, but it's gonna take time, and I'm aware. And hey, you know what? We are gonna world build together, and that's all that matters.
Ew.
All right. Anything you want to add before I close it out?
Sure, we're gonna do a Kitsune segment now. This is
Mm-hmm.
something I'll ask. This is a little. I might just like ask these things in uh you know, in between your questions you want, just as like a because it's
Gotcha.
like just a small sort of question. Uh,
Of course.
it'll just be people's opinions on like certain things, like what's your favorite blank, or like what you do not like or something. Uh, Chat can say it too, and it could all be discussed on. But we all just want to say what we like, right? It's a good
Mm-hmm.
to go to end on a high note. So the
Heck yeah.
one for this session, just because it's you know, the first one, so we don't know much about each other. Well, we kind of do, but the chat doesn't know that. We don't know much about chat. Uh, so I will ask everyone, and you may answer. What's your favorite class, and or build in D&D or any tabletop RPG? What really just
Ranger.
grabs you by the ghoulies in terms of like, it's hard for me not to play X thing every single time.
Ranger. It's such a bad class. I hate it. When I play other class that actually have identity, I feel like I'm actually playing a class that has identity. But oh my god, the 2014 Ranger, give it back. Give me back. Give me back my baby. I want to be really good at certain areas, and I want to be really good at hunting certain monsters, and just let me be shit everywhere else. I don't care. At least I have an identity. I fucking love the Ranger. I can be close range, I can be far range, I can put Hunter's Mark, I can get good berries. It's all good. Give me back the 2014 Ranger. Why?
Of course.
Why?
For me, uh, it is. There's two things I like in terms of like a fantasy character that I think is cool and I like to play. One of that is a martial master, like you know, more of like a master of arms, but like you know, weapon focused. You're cool with your weapon, kind of thing, right? Like that's how it is. Cool with your weapon. Gameplay wise, I also like support, but not like just healing support or anything like that. I really enjoy like um, utility supporting my teammates. Usually buffs, debuffs, and stuff like that. But there's like other things as well that are really cool. And because of that, I usually enjoy Gish builds. Uh, I don't know if anybody knows what the hell that means. I really like spell swords, you know, sword mages, maguses, or the classic Skyrim, I call it, with a sword in one hand and a magic spell in the other, uh, where you use a combination of martial and magic to really help you in combat. And a few of these classes really spoke to me. All you Pathfinder heads out there know I love Scald. Scald is so fun and so unique. It's the barbarian, where you get to rage and all your friends get to rage with you. But you're like a bard in the sense where like you have a lot of spells that are really helpful in combat. But since like you're instead of being like a charisma bard or like maybe some decks, you are like meant to be out in the front lines. So you got the strength and the con and stuff like that. And it just feels so much fun to play. In fourth edition D&D, this translated to the what was the class? The sword mage. That I really enjoyed playing because of same concept of magic and martial combination. Except you can be built to like be super defensive with it, like switch places with your allies right before they get hits, or like give them a magical shield and stuff like that, while still like sort of being on the front lines and being very offensive. One of my favorite classes, it like never gets talked about or it gets implemented into 5th edition, which is really difficult. Horizon Walker Ranger is kind of like it, but it's like more like if you went more offensive with it. There's no like defensive variant. And as for fifth edition, the thing we're talking about. It's sort of split between fighter and bard, as like, the fighter has the cool martial master kind of feel to it, and you can still sort of help out your teammates if you're a battle master. And then bard's just like the support class of all time. It spells support really well. Its class feats support really well. It's you feel like you're not useless, right? You got like slots, you got your bardic inspiration dies, and you're even not terrible in combat depending on your stat spread. It's really between those. Ranger is like the platonic Gish build kind of class, which I like it because of that, but that definitely shouldn't be its identity. But the issue is that Ranger's pretty bad, and so for that to work, I'm basically playing Ranger as like a very, very, very specific kind of way. Whereas I can play like Fighter in a myriad of ways, or Bard in a myriad of ways, kind of thing. So those are my favorite classes. I do like to sort of play.
And for chat, feel free to think of that question, and I did start uploading these onto YouTube, so feel free to answer that question in the comments as well.
Oh yeah. That's right. Don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Ring that bell. Like that like button. Bounce up on down on the subscribe. There you go.
Yeah, what she said. But before I end, let me see who we are going to be raiding into.
Oh yeah.
Alright, you know what? I see someone I like, I'm gonna raid them. There we go. But yeah, with that, everyone. And so the lantern dims, but the spark it lit will keep burning. Thank you for joining us around the fire, traveler. Until next time.